The letter sat on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. 5 years of carefully reconstructed peace, threatened by a single cream envelope with Rachel's unmistakable handwriting. My hands trembled as I reached for it, memories flooding back of that day in the hospital when I lost everything. I'm Naomi, and until that day, I thought I had it all. A loving husband, a best friend who was more like a sister, and a baby girl growing inside me. Now all I have is a nursing degree and a collection of what-ifs. You should burn it, my brother Adrian said, reaching for his coffee. He'd stopped by for our weekly breakfast, a tradition that helped keep me sane after everything fell apart. I probably should. I turned the envelope over in my hands. But you know me. Yeah, I do, which is exactly why you should burn it. He leaned forward, his expression serious. You've worked too hard to let them back in. The memory of that day still burns fresh. I was 7 months pregnant when severe complications sent me to the emergency room. While I fought for my baby's life, my husband John was nowhere to be found. Hours later, as I lay devastated by the loss, a nurse accidentally let slip that my emergency contact, my best friend Rachel, had been admitted to the same hospital for a panic attack. She was in the room right next to mine. They were together, weren't they? I'd asked the nurse, already knowing the answer. Her pitying look said everything. Naomi? Adrian's voice pulled me back to the present. You're doing it again. Sorry. I picked up my toast, now cold. I want to know what she could possibly have to say after all this time. Nothing worth hearing, I bet. I ripped open the envelope, ignoring Adrian's sigh. The letter inside was short, but every word felt like a punch to the gut. Dear Naomi, I know we have no right to ask anything of you, but John and I need your help. We've been trying to have a baby for 3 years with no success. The doctors say I can't carry to term. You're our last hope. Please, just meet with us. We can explain everything. Rachel. You've got to be kidding me. Adrian grabbed the letter, reading it himself. The nerve of these people. I stood up, pacing my small kitchen. They want me to be their surrogate? After everything? Tell me you're not actually considering this. I stopped at my window, staring at the hospital where I now worked as a labor and delivery nurse. Every day I helped bring new life into the world, while my own chance at motherhood had been stolen from me. Of course not, I said, but something stirred inside me, an idea, dark and tempting. My phone buzzed, a text from my colleague Sadie. Emergency at work. Can you cover for me? I have to go, I told Adrian, grateful for the escape. Early shift. He stood, gathering his things. Promise me you'll throw that letter away. Promise, I lied, tucking it into my scrub pocket. At work, between checking on patients, I couldn't stop thinking about Rachel's request. 5 years ago, I'd been too broken to fight back. I'd signed the divorce papers in a daze, moved across town, and threw myself into nursing school. I'd done everything right, rebuilt my life, found purpose in my work, even started dating again. But the wound never really healed. You look like you've seen a ghost, Sadie said during our break. Everything okay? I pulled out the letter, watching her eyes widen as she read it. Holy shit, she whispered. What are you going to do? I took the letter back, smoothing its creases. I think I'm going to help them. What? Are you insane? Maybe I was. But for the first time in 5 years, I felt truly alive. They want a baby so badly? Fine, I'll give them exactly what they want. Naomi, Sadie's voice held a warning. Don't worry, I said, pulling out my phone to compose a reply. I know exactly what I'm doing. My fingers moved swiftly across the screen. Dear Rachel, I'm surprised to hear from you. You're right, we should meet. There's a lot to discuss. How's tomorrow at 2? The response came almost immediately. Thank you, Naomi. You don't know what this means to us. I smiled, tucking my phone away. They had no idea what they were walking into. 5 years ago, they'd destroyed my life when I was at my most vulnerable. Now they were the vulnerable ones, desperate for my help. The perfect chance to make them understand exactly what they'd done to me. I don't like that look in your eyes, Sadie said softly. Don't worry, I repeated, standing up as my break ended. Everything's going to be just fine. But as I walked back to my patients, my hand drifted to my flat stomach, remembering the daughter I'd lost. Tomorrow, I'd face the two people who had betrayed me at my lowest point, and this time, I'd be the one in control. The coffee shop felt too small as I watched them walk in. John still had that confident stride, though his hair had started graying at the temples. Rachel looked thinner than I remembered, her designer clothes hanging loose on her frame. They spotted me in the corner booth, and I could see Rachel's steps falter. "Naomi," John said, his voice softer than I expected. "Thank you for meeting us." I gestured to the seats across from me, keeping my face neutral. "Please, sit." They settled in awkwardly, Rachel's hands fidgeting with her purse strap. The silence stretched until our server arrived to take their orders. "Just water," Rachel said quickly. John ordered black coffee. "So," I said once we were alone again, "you want me to carry your baby?" Rachel flinched at my directness. "We've tried everything," she whispered. "Multiple IVF cycles, different specialists. My body just... it keeps rejecting." "We understand this is a huge ask," John cut in, reaching for Rachel's trembling hand. The gesture made my stomach turn, especially given our history. I took a slow sip of my tea. Our history. That's an interesting way to put it. "Naomi, please," Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I know we can never make up for what we did, but we've changed. We've grown." "Have you?" I leaned forward. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're still the same selfish people who left me alone in that hospital room while my daughter died." John's face paled. "We never meant..." "Never meant what? To fall in love while I was carrying your child? To start your affair behind my back? To abandon me when I needed you most?" "It wasn't like that," Rachel protested weakly. "Then tell me what it was like. Help me understand why my husband and best friend thought it was okay to destroy me." The server returned with their drinks, creating another uncomfortable pause. I watched them squirm, savoring their discomfort. "We were wrong," John said finally. "Terribly, unforgivably wrong. If we could go back..." "But you can't," I interrupted. "And now you want my help." The irony is almost poetic. Rachel wiped her eyes. "We've been to every fertility clinic in the state. None of the other surrogates worked out. You're our last hope, Naomi. Please." I sat back, studying them. Rachel looked desperate, haunted. John couldn't meet my eyes. Perfect. "I'll do it," I said. They both stared at me, shocked. "What?" Rachel breathed. "I'll be your surrogate, under certain conditions." "Anything," John said quickly. "First, we do this through proper legal channels. My lawyer draws up the contract, not yours." They nodded eagerly. "Second, I want full transparency about everything. Medical records, genetic testing, all of it. No secrets." "Of course," Rachel agreed. "And third," I paused, making sure I had their complete attention, "you both agree to weekly counseling sessions, together and separately." John frowned. "Counseling?" "You want me to carry your child. I need to know you're both mentally prepared for parenthood, that you've dealt with your issues." Rachel grabbed John's arm before he could protest. "We'll do it, whatever you want." I pulled out my lawyer's card, sliding it across the table. "Call Tobias. He'll handle the paperwork. Once everything's signed, we can start the medical procedures." They stood, Rachel looking like she might hug me. I stepped back quickly. "This is just business," I said coldly. "Don't mistake it for forgiveness." After they left, I remained in the booth, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone to text Adrian. They agreed. Everything's set. His response was immediate. "You're playing with fire, sis." Maybe I was. But watching their desperate faces, seeing how badly they wanted this baby, I knew I'd made the right choice. They'd taken everything from me 5 years ago. Now it was my turn to show them exactly how that felt. Back at work that evening, Sadie cornered me in the break room. "Well," she demanded, "how did it go?" "They agreed to everything, even the counseling." She shook her head. "I still think you're crazy." What happens when they figure out what you're really doing? I smiled, thinking of Rachel's tears, John's guilt-ridden face. They won't. They're too desperate for this baby to question anything. And what about you? Sadie asked softly. Are you ready to carry another child? To go through all that again? The question hit harder than I expected. I turned away, organizing supplies to hide my expression. I'm not doing this to have a baby, I said firmly. I'm doing this to make them understand what they did to me. And then what? I closed the supply cabinet with more force than necessary. And then I'll finally be able to move on. But as I headed home that night, past the nursery wing where newborns cried and parents celebrated, I wondered if I was lying to myself. Was this really about revenge? Or was I chasing something else? Something I'd lost 5 years ago in a hospital room, alone and betrayed. Tomorrow I'd meet with Tobias to start the legal process. There would be no turning back after that. No room for doubt or second thoughts. They wanted my help? Fine. They'd get exactly what they deserved. The fertility clinic's waiting room was eerily quiet as I sat between John and Rachel, waiting for our first appointment. 2 months of legal paperwork and preliminary tests had led to this moment. Rachel's leg bounced nervously, while John stared at his phone, his jaw tense. "Mrs. Clark?" the nurse called, and Rachel jumped. "That's still weird to hear," I muttered, loud enough for them both to catch it. Rachel's face flushed red. The nurse led us to Dr. Patterson's office, her walls covered with photos of smiling babies. Rachel gravitated toward them immediately, touching one frame with trembling fingers. "Good morning," Dr. Patterson breezed in, her smile professional. "I've reviewed all your files. Shall we discuss the procedure?" As she explained the IVF process, I watched John and Rachel from the corner of my eye. They weren't sitting as close as they had been at the coffee shop. Rachel kept reaching for John's hand, but he remained stiff, distant. "Any questions?" Dr. Patterson asked. "I have one," I said. "I'd like to see Rachel's complete medical history." Rachel's head snapped up. "You already have my records." "The basics, yes, but I want everything. Every test, every failed attempt, every diagnosis." "That's not," John started, but Rachel cut him off. "It's fine. I'll have everything sent over." Dr. Patterson cleared her throat. "Well, if we're all comfortable proceeding, we can schedule the first hormone treatment for next week." In the parking lot afterward, Rachel caught my arm. "Naomi, wait. Can we talk?" John was already in their car, engine running. "What is it?" "I just—" She hugged herself, looking small. "Thank you for doing this. I know you must hate us." "Hate requires emotional investment," I said coldly. "I feel nothing for either of you." Her face crumpled, but she pressed on. "John's been different lately. Distant. I think he feels guilty about everything." "Good. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my ears. "Harder? Like watching my husband comfort my best friend while my baby died wasn't hard enough? That's not fair." "No, what's not fair is you two showing up after 5 years, asking me to give you the one thing you took from me." John honked the horn, making us both jump. Rachel wiped her eyes and hurried to the car. I watched them drive away, noting how they sat as far apart as the seats allowed. Back at work, I slipped into the records room during my break. Rachel's medical files had arrived, and I began scanning through them, looking for anything unusual. "What are you doing?" Sadie's voice made me jump. "Research," I said, not looking up. She peered over my shoulder. "Those are private records. I'm their surrogate. I have a right to know." "Know what exactly?" She pulled up a chair. "That they're having marriage troubles? Because that's pretty obvious from what you've told me." I flipped through another page, then stopped. "Wait. Look at this." The report detailed Rachel's third failed pregnancy, but something in the genetic testing caught my eye. "This can't be right," I muttered, reading it again. "What?" "According to this, Rachel has a genetic condition that makes pregnancy dangerous for both her and the baby. But they never mentioned this." Sadie frowned. "Maybe they don't know?" "No, look at the date. This was from last year. They know, and they're hiding it from me." "But why would they—" Because it might affect my decision, I said, anger building. They're still lying, still keeping secrets. I pulled out my phone, typing furiously, "Emergency meeting. Tomorrow morning, your house. No excuses." Rachel's response came quickly. "Is everything okay? We'll discuss it tomorrow." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Rachel's face in the parking lot, about John's distance. Something wasn't adding up. Adrian called around midnight. "You're still awake, aren't you?" "How did you know?" "Because I know you." "What's going on?" I told him about the medical records, about John and Rachel's strange behavior. "Maybe you should back out," he suggested. "This seems messier than we thought." "No," I said firmly. "This is exactly what I needed. Proof that they haven't changed. They're still the same selfish, lying people they were 5 years ago." "And you're sure this is about them? Not about you trying to replace what you lost?" I hung up on him. The next morning, as I drove to their house, my mind raced with possibilities. Why hide the genetic condition? What else were they keeping from me? The perfect revenge I'd planned was becoming complicated, layers of secrets threatening to suffocate us all. Their house looked exactly like the kind of place I'd once dreamed of living in: perfectly manicured lawn, white picket fence, window boxes full of flowers. But as I parked in their driveway, I could hear shouting from inside. "You never wanted this!" Rachel's voice, shrill and breaking. "You're only doing this because you feel guilty." "That's not true," John shouted back. I smiled grimly as I walked to their door. Time to add some fuel to this fire. The shouting stopped the moment I rang the doorbell. Rachel opened it, her eyes red and puffy, trying to force a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Naomi, come in. Would you like some tea?" Their living room was a shrine to forced perfection. Matching furniture, artfully arranged throw pillows, family photos where they both smiled too widely. John stood by the window, his back to us. "No tea," I said, pulling the medical report from my bag. "Let's talk about this instead." Rachel's face went pale as she recognized the document. "Where did you get that?" "You agreed to full transparency, remember?" I placed it on their coffee table. "Want to explain why you hid this?" John turned around finally. "Hid what?" "She doesn't know," Rachel whispered, and suddenly everything clicked into place. I looked between them. "You never told him about the genetic condition?" The silence that followed was deafening. John crossed the room in 3 quick strides, snatching up the report. "What genetic condition?" His voice was dangerously quiet as he read. "Rachel, what is this?" Rachel sank onto the couch, her perfect facade crumbling. "I was going to tell you." "When?" John exploded. "After we got Naomi pregnant with a baby that could inherit this? Were you ever going to tell me the real reason you can't carry to term?" "I was scared," Rachel sobbed. "You've been so distant, so reluctant about this whole thing. I thought if you knew—" "If I knew what?" "That you've been lying to me? That you're willing to risk someone else's health to get what you want?" I watched them unravel, feeling a twisted satisfaction. But something else crept in, too. An unexpected pang of empathy as Rachel curled into herself, looking smaller by the second. "Stop," I said, surprising myself. "Both of you, just stop." They turned to me as if suddenly remembering I was there. "Rachel, what you did was wrong. Hiding this information put me at risk." I took a deep breath. "But I think I understand why you did it." "You do?" Rachel looked up, hope flickering across her tear-stained face. "You're terrified of losing him," I said softly. "Just like I was." John made a choked sound and sat heavily in an armchair. "The counseling sessions," I continued. "Have you been going?" Rachel nodded. "Separately. John wouldn't do the couples sessions." "Because this isn't what I want," John burst out. "Any of it. I'm only doing this because I owe you, Rachel, because I destroyed my marriage, hurt Naomi, all for you. And now I find out you've been lying too?" The room fell silent, except for Rachel's quiet sobs. I stood there, my carefully crafted revenge plan crumbling around me. These weren't the same people who had betrayed me 5 years ago. They were broken, struggling, drowning in guilt and unspoken truths. I think, I said slowly, we all need to take a step back. What do you mean? Rachel asked. I mean we pause the surrogacy process. You two need to figure out if this is really what you both want, and you need to do it honestly this time. John looked at me with something like gratitude. Naomi, I'm so sorry. For everything. Don't, I held up my hand. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I won't be part of creating a child that's born into lies. I've seen what that does to people. My phone buzzed, a text from Sadie. Everything okay? Need backup? I typed back quickly. No, things just got complicated. What happens now? Rachel asked, her voice small. Now you tell me the whole truth. About the condition, about your marriage, about everything. And then we decide if moving forward makes any sense. As I drove home later that day, my hands shook on the steering wheel. I called Adrian. They're falling apart, I said when he answered. And I think I'm glad. Isn't that what you wanted? Yes. No. I don't know anymore. I pulled into my driveway. I wanted to hurt them like they hurt me, but watching them today, they're already hurting themselves worse than I ever could. Maybe that's your real revenge, Adrian suggested, making them face the truth they've been running from. I sat in my car, watching the sunset paint my small house in shades of orange and pink. 5 years ago, I'd lost everything in a single day. Now I was watching John and Rachel lose each other in slow motion, and it didn't feel as satisfying as I'd imagined. My phone lit up with a text from Rachel. Thank you for today, for making us talk. Can we meet tomorrow? Just us? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Okay, but this time, no more lies. The revenge I'd planned was slipping away, transforming into something else. Something that felt surprisingly like healing. Rachel chose a small diner on the outskirts of town for our meeting. When I arrived, she was already there, stirring her coffee absently, her wedding ring conspicuously absent. John moved out last night, she said as I slid into the booth. He's staying at a hotel. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. No, you're not, she smiled sadly. But thank you for saying it anyway. The waitress came by, and I ordered coffee. Neither of us touched the menus. I found this while he was packing. Rachel pulled an envelope from her purse. It's addressed to you. He wrote it 3 years ago but never sent it. My hands trembled as I took it. Why are you giving this to me? Because I'm tired of secrets. Read it. I opened the envelope carefully, unfolding the letter inside. Dear Naomi, it's our daughter's would-be birthday. I drove past the hospital today, thinking about how different everything should have been. Rachel's asleep upstairs, but I can't stop thinking about you, about the baby, about all the ways I failed as a husband and a father before I even had the chance to be either. The truth is, I never deserved you. You were kind and genuine, while I was a coward who took the easy way out. Rachel and I, we didn't plan for any of this to happen, but that's no excuse. We should have been honest. You deserved that much. I watch Rachel struggle with guilt every day, and I know we're being punished for what we did to you. Maybe that's fair. Maybe we deserve this pain. I'm sorry. I know it means nothing now, but I am so deeply sorry. John. I folded the letter carefully, my vision blurring. He writes one every year, Rachel said quietly. On her birthday. I found them all last night. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know that we never forgot. We never moved on. What we did to you, it broke something in both of us. The waitress returned with my coffee. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, trying to steady myself. The genetic condition, I said finally. Tell me about it. Rachel's hands twisted in her lap. It's called Turner syndrome. It means any daughter I have would likely have severe health issues. That's why I keep miscarrying. My body, it knows. And you were willing to risk passing that on? I was desperate, she whispered. John's been pulling away for months. I thought if I could just give him a child. But it wouldn't fix anything. No, she agreed. It would just bring another innocent person into our mess. I took a sip of coffee, thinking about the letter in my purse. Why did you really choose me as your surrogate? Rachel looked out the window, tears sliding down her cheeks. Because I thought if you helped us create something beautiful, maybe it would make up for what we destroyed. Stupid, right? Yes, I said. But I understand desperate decisions. I was about to make one myself. She turned back to me. What do you mean? When you first asked me to be your surrogate, I agreed because I wanted revenge. I wanted to make you feel the loss I felt. Oh, Rachel's voice was small. And now? Now I realize we're all still stuck in that hospital room 5 years ago. You, me, John. We never really left. How do we leave? By telling the truth, all of it. I leaned forward. What really happened that day, Rachel? Why were you in the hospital? She paled. Naomi, please. I need to know. No more hiding. Rachel's hands shook as she picked up her coffee cup. I was pregnant too. Early stages. When I found out, I panicked. I took something to end it. But there were complications. That's why I was in the hospital. The truth hit me like a physical blow. You were pregnant with John's baby while I was carrying his child? She nodded, tears flowing freely now. I've never told anyone, not even John. The guilt, it's eating me alive. I sat back, feeling oddly hollow. All these years I'd imagined their betrayal as something passionate, romantic, but this was messier, uglier, more human. Does John know about any of this? No, Rachel whispered, and I can't tell him. It would destroy him completely. My phone buzzed. A text from John. Can we talk, please? I showed Rachel the message. Looks like he wants his own private conversation. Are you going to tell him what I just told you? I stood up, leaving money for the coffee. No, that's your truth to tell. But Rachel, you should. Secrets have a way of destroying everything they touch. As I walked to my car, I felt lighter somehow. The revenge I'd planned seemed petty now, compared to the weight of the truths we were all carrying. I texted John back. Tomorrow, your hotel. We have a lot to talk about. The game had changed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about finally leaving that hospital room behind. The hotel lobby was quiet when I arrived. John sat in a corner armchair, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usual polished appearance was gone, replaced by wrinkled clothes and stubble. Thanks for coming, he said, standing. There's a coffee shop next door. We walked in silence, found a quiet table away from other customers. John ordered an espresso. I stuck with water. I guess Rachel gave you my letter, he said after our drinks arrived. One of them. She said there are others. He rubbed his face. One for every birthday our daughter should have had. Pathetic, right? No, I said softly. Not pathetic. I've been seeing my therapist daily since I moved out. He stared into his cup. She says I never properly grieved. For our daughter, for our marriage, for any of it. And Rachel? Rachel, he sighed heavily. I think I married her out of guilt. Like if I could make her happy, it would somehow make up for what we did to you. A barista dropped something in the kitchen, the crash making us both jump. Did it work? I asked. Nothing works. We're both just pretending, playing house while drowning in secrets. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to a photo I'd taken of Rachel's medical records. Speaking of secrets, I found something else you should see. He took the phone, frowning as he read. These dates. This was before we even approached you about surrogacy. Keep reading. His face went pale. The genetic testing, the risk factors. She knew about all of this? She knew the risks, not just to her, but to any baby she might have. And she still wanted... He set the phone down carefully, his hands shaking. She was willing to risk a child's health just to keep me? People do desperate things when they're scared of losing everything. Like having an affair with their best friend's husband? His voice was bitter. Like agreeing to be a surrogate to get revenge, I countered. He looked up sharply. What? That's why I said yes, John. I wanted to make you both suffer, to give you hope, and then take it away. Oh. He was quiet for a moment. I guess we all have our secrets. The difference is, I'm telling you mine. A group of teenagers entered the coffee shop, their laughter jarring against our heavy conversation. There's something else, I said. Something Rachel told me yesterday. Don't. He held up his hand. If Rachel has more secrets, she needs to tell me herself. Even if keeping quiet means you might make decisions based on incomplete information? He laughed hollowly. My whole life is based on incomplete information. At least now I know that. What are you going to do? I filed for divorce this morning. The words hung between us like smoke. Part of me, the part that had plotted revenge, should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt oddly empty. Are you sure that's what you want? Want? He shook his head. What I want is to go back 5 years and make different choices. What I want is to be worthy of the family I could have had with you. What I want is impossible. John, no, let me finish. I've been a coward for too long. He met my eyes directly. I loved you, Naomi, really loved you, and I threw it away because I was scared of how much I loved you, of failing you, of not being enough. Rachel was safe, familiar, an escape. And now? Now I know there's no escape. We all have to face what we've done eventually. My phone buzzed, a text from Rachel. Is he okay? I showed it to John. Tell her I'm fine, he said. Tell her I'm ready to hear whatever she needs to say. As I typed the response, John pulled out his wallet and laid some cash on the table. Thank you, he said, standing, for showing me those records, for being honest about your intentions, for everything. Where are you going? To talk to my wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, whatever she is. He paused. You know, I thought having a baby would fix everything, but we can't create new life when we're still living in death. I watched him leave, thinking about the daughter we lost, about Rachel's secret pregnancy, about all the babies that would never be. My phone buzzed again, Sadie this time. How's Operation Revenge going? I typed back. It's not. Everything's changed. Changed how? I stared at her message, thinking about John's letters, Rachel's tears, the weight of secrets finally spoken aloud. I'll tell you tomorrow, I replied. Right now, I need to make a call. I scrolled to Tobias's number, my finger hovering over it. One call, and I could officially end the surrogacy agreement. End this chapter of all our lives. But first, Rachel and John needed to have one final conversation. One last truth to set us all free. The call came at 3 a.m. Rachel's voice was barely a whisper. Can you come over, please? I found them in their living room, sitting on opposite ends of the couch. The space between them might as well have been an ocean. Empty wine glasses sat on the coffee table alongside crumpled tissues and what looked like divorce papers. I told him, Rachel said as I entered. Everything. John's face was ashen, his hands gripping his knees. I needed you both here for this, to put everything on the table. I sat in the armchair, completing our triangle of broken people. Okay, I'm here. Start from the beginning, John said to Rachel. Tell Naomi what you told me. Rachel's hands trembled as she spoke. The affair? It started 3 months before your pregnancy, Naomi. I was John's shoulder to cry on when he panicked about becoming a father. One thing led to another, and you got pregnant, I finished. John made a sound like he'd been punched. When I found out about the baby, our baby, I was terrified. But I was going to tell you, Naomi. I swear I was. But then I took care of it, Rachel's voice was hollow. Without telling John, without telling anyone. And it went wrong. That's why I was in the hospital that day. While our daughter was dying, I said quietly. Yes. Tears streamed down Rachel's face. I've hated myself every day since then. When the doctors told me about the genetic condition later, about how I might never have a healthy baby, it felt like punishment. So you thought using me as a surrogate would fix everything? The bitterness crept back into my voice. I thought, Rachel looked at John, I thought if we could create something pure, something good. But we can't, John interrupted, because nothing built on lies can ever be pure. Silence filled the room. Outside, a car alarm went off briefly, before falling quiet. I wanted to hurt you both, I said finally. When you asked me to be your surrogate, I saw my chance for revenge. I was going to wait until you were invested, hopeful, and then take it all away. What changed? Rachel asked. I saw myself in you. The desperation, the pain, the secrets. We're all just broken people trying to fix things in the wrong ways. John stood suddenly, pacing the room. Do you know what I remember most about that day in the hospital? Not finding out about the affair, not even, his voice cracked, not even losing our daughter. I remember the silence, how quiet everything was when it all fell apart. I remember the beeping, I said, the monitors, the doctors talking in hushed voices. I remember praying, Rachel whispered, bargaining with God. Take my baby instead of Naomi's, I said. Make me pay the price, not her. But that's not how it works, I said. We all paid the price. We're still paying it. John stopped pacing. So what do we do now? I pulled out my phone, showing them Tobias's number. First, we end this surrogacy agreement. It was wrong from the start. All of our reasons were wrong. Rachel nodded slowly. And then? Then you two figure out if your marriage can survive this much honesty, or if it should. And you? John asked. What will you do? I thought about the nursery at work, about the babies I help deliver every day. I'll keep living, keep healing. Maybe someday I'll have another chance at motherhood. But it will be on my terms, with someone who deserves my trust. I'm so sorry, Rachel sobbed. We've all been so sorry for so long. I know, I said, standing. That's why I'm going to do something I never thought I could. They both looked at me, waiting. I forgive you. The words hung in the air like a release, like the first breath after being underwater too long. Not for you, I continued. For me. Because carrying this anger, this need for revenge, it's exhausting, and I'm ready to be free. John wiped his eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just do better. Be better, whether that's together or apart. I called Tobias on my way out, leaving them to figure out their next steps. His voicemail picked up. Tobias, it's Naomi. The surrogacy agreement. Cancel everything. I'll come by tomorrow to sign whatever I need to sign. As I drove home in the pre-dawn darkness, my phone lit up with texts from both of them. Rachel, thank you for making us face the truth. John, you deserved better. We all did. I didn't respond to either message. Some chapters need to end in silence, in the quiet acknowledgement that sometimes healing comes not from revenge, but from finally letting go. At home, I opened my window to watch the sunrise, thinking about all the babies I'd help bring into the world tomorrow. Each one a new beginning, a chance for something pure and true. And for the first time in 5 years, that thought didn't hurt. The autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves as I walked through the hospital garden. This had become my favorite lunch spot, a quiet place to decompress between deliveries. Today, though, I wasn't alone. I thought I might find you here, Sadie said, sitting beside me on the bench. Rough morning? Beautiful morning, actually. Twins. Both healthy, both perfect. She smiled, handing me a coffee. You seem different lately. Lighter. I am. I watched a pair of birds chase each other through the trees. Did I tell you Rachel called yesterday? No. What did she want? To let me know she's moving to Seattle. Fresh start, she said. The divorce was finalized last week. How do you feel about that? I considered the question, sipping my coffee. Honestly, I hope she finds what she's looking for. That's surprisingly generous of you. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of carrying around other people's guilt alongside my own. A young couple walked past us, the woman heavily pregnant, the man supporting her with gentle care. Once, that sight would have sent me spiraling. Now it just felt like watching life continue its natural course. Speaking of guilt, Sadie said, John dropped this off at the nurse's station for you. She handed me a small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a silver frame holding a sonogram image, my daughter from all those years ago. I found this while cleaning out the house, John's note read. She deserved to be remembered, and you deserve to have this piece of her. Oh, Sadie breathed, reading over my shoulder. Are you okay? Yeah, I traced the tiny profile in the image. I really am. My phone buzzed, a message from Adrian. Dinner tonight? Big news to share. Go, Sadie said, seeing my hesitation. I'll cover your afternoon shift. You sure? Positive. Besides, you've earned some happiness of your own. At the small Italian restaurant Adrian loved, I found him practically bouncing with excitement. What's the big news? I asked, sliding into the booth. Remember that promotion I mentioned, the one in Chicago? You got it? He nodded, grinning. And I want you to come with me. What? Hear me out. The hospital there is twice the size of this one, with a state-of-the-art maternity ward. They're always looking for experienced nurses. Adrian, you need this, sis. A fresh start. Somewhere without ghosts around every corner. I opened my mouth to refuse automatically, but stopped. What was really keeping me here? I'll think about it, I said instead. That's all I'm asking. Later that night, I sat in my garden looking at the stars. The frame from John sat in my lap, my daughter's image silvery in the moonlight. My phone lit up with a text from Rachel. Found this while packing. Thought you should have it. The attached photo showed 3 young women laughing at a beach. Rachel, me, and our friend Kate from college. We looked so carefree, so unaware of how life would change us all. Remember who we were, Rachel's next message read. But more importantly, remember who we can still become. I looked at the sonogram again, thinking about Chicago, about fresh starts and new beginnings. I'm sorry I tried to use your memory for revenge, I whispered to the image. You deserved better than that. We all did. My phone buzzed one more time, an email from the hospital administrator. Naomi, heard you might be considering a move. Before you decide, I'd like to discuss promoting you to head nurse of labor and delivery. You've earned it. Let's talk tomorrow. I smiled, thinking about how life had a way of opening doors just when you thought all paths were closed. Inside, I placed the frame on my mantel, next to the photo of my nursing school graduation. Not hidden away like a painful secret, but displayed as part of my story. A chapter that helped shape me, but no longer defined me. I typed 3 messages. To Adrian, let's talk more about Chicago tomorrow. To Rachel, safe travels. I hope you find your peace. To John, thank you for the frame. She'll always be part of both of us. Then I walked through my house, really seeing it for the first time in years. Not as a refuge from pain, but as a space full of possibilities. Whether I stayed or left, chose Chicago or the promotion, the decision would be about moving forward, not running away. My revenge plan had failed spectacularly. Instead of destroying John and Rachel, it had forced us all to face our truths, to finally begin healing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about making others suffer, it's about refusing to let past suffering determine your future. I opened my window to let in the night air, feeling truly free for the first time since that day in the hospital. Tomorrow would bring new babies, new chances, new choices, and I was finally ready for all of it.